In this video, we are going to learn how we can establish certain protocols for data that's being entered in the system. Now, our users will obviously create student records or records for other objects as well. Now, how do we ensure that they are consistent, and how do we create rules that users need to enter certain information in certain format or make sure a certain field is not empty and all that? Salesforce provides us a feature called Validation Rules to make sure that any data that is being entered in the system can be validated, and only if it meets our requirements or our format, only then will Salesforce allow the user to save that record. Now let's look at a very basic example. In this case, if I click New, if I try to create a new student, let's say Dave Matt, and I have phone and email. Now I want to create a validation, or I want to ensure that at least one of these values needs to be input if you're trying to save a student record. You need to at least, either you need to have a phone or you need to have an email. For now, I can simply go ahead and save without either of those, which is wrong because we need at least some kind of contact information for this student, right? If you're creating a student in your database in Salesforce, you need to have some kind of contact information for them. So in order to make sure that the users enter at least one of those, either a phone or an email, you can use validation rules. Now, how does that work? Click on the gear icon, go into Setup, Object Manager. From here, you can go into the object on which you wish to create your validation. And down below, you're going to see validation rules. Click New. And there you are. First, you need to give your rule a name. I can simply say contact information rule. So the name can be anything that helps you remember what the rule is for or why you created it. It doesn't matter, you can name it anything. You can add a description. Make sure that the active checkbox is checked. Down here is where all the magic happens. So this is our formula box. This is where you're going to write your formula. And the syntax for writing a validation rule is exactly the same as how you write a formula for a formula field in Salesforce. So now, how does a validation rule work? So if your validation or if your formula returns true, then Salesforce will throw an error. So your formula needs to return true in order for Salesforce to throw an error. So in our case, we need to throw the error if both the phone and email field, if both of them are null, or if both of them are blank. So now we can use functions over here to achieve some of that. Now these functions allow you to basically tailor your validation rule and use certain fields like dates, or use certain checks like is the field blank, and a lot more. So in our case, we need to use isBlank function, which allows us to check whether a field is blank or not. So if you go into that function, you can read about it, checks whether an expression is blank and returns true or false. If you want more information on all of these functions, you can simply click on this link here. It'll take you to a Salesforce website with all the information on all the functions. For now, I'm going to say insert selected function. And in the parentheses, I have to write down my field that I want to check whether that field is blank or not. Now, how do you write down your field? Simply click on Insert Field. First, you can pick email. So these are all the fields on your student object. And just say Insert. All right, so we've checked that is email blank. If email field is blank, this formula will return true, meaning Salesforce will throw an error. But we don't want to throw an error just when this field is blank. We want to throw an error if both the phone and email both are blank. So for that, you can simply use another function called AND, because you want to compare two or multiple things, and all those need to be true in order for the total outcome to be true. So in that case, the AND function is what you need. Checks whether all arguments are true and returns true if all arguments are true. So So you say insert selected function, and you can have multiple logical tests, as you can see. So I'm just going to remove all that, and I will copy over our first is blank. Check. Okay, so first we're checking our email, then you can simply put a comma, and you can do the same thing again. Copy your is blank, drag another is blank function, and in place of expression, now you can use phone. Insert. And that's it. So basically you start your AND function, you start parentheses, and inside those parentheses you check whether email is blank, comma, whether phone is blank, and then at the end you close your AND function with these parentheses. So now Salesforce will basically throw an error if both these fields are blank. Even if one of these is not blank, then the output of this formula will be false and Salesforce will not throw an error. So down below you have an error message, so you can write down a customized error message that Salesforce should throw. So I'm going to say, please enter the phone or email. And now you can choose to throw that error either at the top of the page or at a specific field. So if I choose field, then I have to choose which field should the error show up on. In this case, I want to throw the error on the top of the page, so we'll just do this. Make sure the active checkbox is checked and hit save. Now we can go back here. We can refresh. Let's try to create a new student. Let's just say Sarah. And let's try to save this record without entering the phone and email. There we go. Please enter the phone or email. So we need to enter at least one. So let's try to enter an email. So let's just say sarah@test.com. Now this should let us save. Based on our validation rule, this should allow us to save Sarah's record because we have at least one piece of contact information. So we should at least either have email or phone number based on our validation. Let's try it, and it worked. That's great, awesome, right? So that's how validation rules work in Salesforce. There's obviously a lot that you can do, but this is how basically you need to use a validation rule. A validation rule will also apply to all your old records, the ones that already exist in the system. Now, if you try to edit them, the new validation rules that you've created will apply to those as well. Thank you.